Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about 3 tips for managing Generation Z. Now you may think, wait, you meant to say Generation Y. No, I'm talking about Generation Z, the generation that comes after Generation Y, or Millennials if you will. And these are people that are born between 1995 and 2009. They're entering the workforce and more than likely you may have some of them on your team. And so how do you manage them? How do you manage them well? And again, Generation Y and Generation Z are 2 different generations, and very often we kind of lump the 2 together. We refer to all of them collectively as millennials, and we've kind of put this label on them. That the reality of it is if you start looking at the research, we're moving past the millennials to this new generation, Generation Z, entering in the workplace. And so I've noticed personally that there is a difference between the 2. And if you understand a little bit of the nuances, you can help better manage this new generation that's coming through college and it's going to be entering your workforce soon, or if they're not in your workforce right now, it's like interns, whatever that is, they're going to be there soon if they're not there right now. For us, we've got interns, I've got a couple staff that I think would definitely classify as Generation Z. So I want to give you today 3 tips for managing Generation Z and managing them well. The first tip is this: Generation Z is very proactive. Very proactive in the sense that if you don't do what they want to do, they're going to do it themselves. So I've learned that if a Generation Z person has something on their mind they really want to do, it's a really good idea to find a way to make that happen for them. Otherwise, they'll probably go and do it. Sometimes with not great results. And that's just because they have a very much of a go, 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 very innovative mindset. A little different than Generation Y, which is more collaborative. Sometimes Generation Z they'll just bolt out there and they'll just do it. My wife has noticed this in some of her students, that if she doesn't let them plan things, let them do things on their own, or at least drive things, she'll find that she gets a lot of pushback, and all of a sudden she's having to kind of rein things back in, versus if she let them drive it to begin with, she can kind of help and guide the process. In fact, a lot of times that's what I end up finding myself is it's not so much as the driver of things, but more as a guide of things, as Generation Z people try to figure out where the next steps are and where they want to go. Now, the next thing with Generation Z that makes them unique is they really want flat leadership. They're really not crazy about these organizations that are very hierarchical in nature. In other words, organizations that are very much like top down. They want much more of a flat environment. So I encourage you to keep things between the top and the bottom as flat as possible in terms of communication. They want a sense that they have connection to leadership, and that leadership and them are roughly on the same level, even though technically speaking they're not. The whole concept of this leadership and this hierarchy and protocols, all that kind of stuff to them doesn't make a lot of sense. So you want to keep things flat as possible and communication open as possible with them. So for me, I don't hang on to titles. I don't really focus on the hierarchy relationship of things. I focus as much as I can on getting the leadership flat as possible and interact with them as a peer level as much as I can, even though technically I may be their boss. But I want to do that so I get them a sense that they're part of a larger organization as a whole, but they feel like this is a quick moving place, that they're not being held up by a hierarchy, a type of leadership model. And I think it's very hard for some of us to break that mentality, because that's the way a lot of our organizations are set up. It's very set up where they're very much a traditional, modern hierarchy, and then they're looking for something they're looking for flat leadership. They want to see something that's a very, very kind of flat level of leadership. The third tip for you is understand that the way they look at social media, they look at social media as not so much a networking opportunity, but they look at it as transparency. In other words, they think that if you're not on social media, you have something to hide. So if you're managing Gen Z and you don't want to be on social media, or you kind of keep things back ahead a little bit, understand to them that may be a signal that you've got something to hide. Now, that's probably not the case, but the reality of it is they're not trusting of people who are not on social media. Remember, Generation Z is probably our first true digital natives, where they literally grew up with the cell phone. Think about that. The iPhone is now closing in on 10 years being old. So if they are roughly, let's say, 18, 20 years old, they've known an iPhone since basically almost half their life. So for them, the whole idea of putting yourself out there on social media, all those things, that's a natural thing. And if you don't do that, they assume you have something to hide. So one of the ways you're going to be able to interact with them, and one of the ways that you're going to basically kind of honestly earn their trust as a leader, is probably being on social media, interacting with them there as well. Remember, they assume that if you're not on social media, you've got something to hide. And I actually recently did a poll of college kids I was teaching in a class, and I said, how many of you don't trust somebody who's not on social media, whether it's somebody you're dating, your boss, whatever it is? And immediately 75% of the rooms, the hands shot up saying, I don't trust that person if they're not on social media. So for me, that was kind of like a eye-opening moment. So the three things are this: one, let them lead. Understand if you don't let them lead, they're going to lead. Two, flatten your organization as much as possible, okay? Give them a sense as a flat organization. And three, you need to be on social media, and you need to be transparent as possible on social media, because that's what they're going to expect of you, because that's one of the ways you can build their trust. So those are just 3 tips on dealing with Generation Z. If you want more information on that, I'll put a link in the show notes for McCrindle Research, which has done a lot of really good research on Generation Z and what's coming down the pipe. Thanks for watching. Bye.